So what I want to discuss with you? Actually, three different things. So first, I want to show you how with some sophisticated prompting, you can actually use generative AI to help you to generate for yourself a personal digital branding strategy. Yeah. So if you have the ambition to become more visible in the digital world on social media, what kind of strategy could you develop? And I want to show you how Gen AI can help you with that. I will also briefly then talk about when should you use Gen AI for digital branding and when should you avoid it? Because I don't think you need to use Gen AI for everything. I even think that that's not always the best way to do. And so although I'm quite enthusiastic about Gen AI, I also think it's not good for everything. So I will try to give you a kind of framework that can help you in that respect. And then finally, I will simply demonstrate some tools that I'm using today to help me with my digital branding. Yeah, so that's what I want to show. And then again, afterwards, we have time for questions and answers. So let me start with how to leverage Gen AI for developing your personal digital branding strategy. And I want to show you different ways how you can do that. And actually, I think here already an essential part is if you want to get good output, you need to give good input. And that means we need to do quite some sophisticated prompting if you want to get a high quality suggestions for your personal branding strategy. And here on the slide, I've tried to summarize what should be in your prompts. And essentially, I think you need to stipulate three different things. First, you need to stipulate the role of ChatGPT and of yourself. Yeah? So in this prompt, what does ChatGPT needs to be? And so in this case, it would be ChatGPT is an expert in digital branding for social media, something like that. Then we need to describe the task. So what is kind of the task we want ChatGPT to do? So we need to describe the goal, but it's always also good to describe steps that ChatGPT needs to execute. And this is what we call chain of thought prompting. So we want to clearly explain these are the steps you need to do to execute this task. And you can even provide some rules that it needs to obey when executing the task. Yeah? For instance, for digital branding strategy, it might be that a rule is, I want to focus on LinkedIn and YouTube, or a rule could be, I only want to focus on an audience of plus 40, whatever. Yeah? So you can stipulate some rules. And then you also have to be very explicit about what kind of output do you want. Yeah? So do you want an output in bullet point style? Do you want to have a full text? You can stipulate whatever output you want today, but you need to actually give that output, and it might even make sense to give some examples. So a good prompt actually contains all these elements, so that's quite time consuming. But actually today there are tools that can help you. Yeah? So because otherwise you need to spend a lot of time, but there are actually nowadays a lot of tools that can help you to write high quality prompts. And one of these tools is a tool that I have developed, and this is a GPT. Yeah? So in ChatGPT, you can have GPTs and you can use GPTs of others. And so this is a publicly available GPT that I've developed called the Expert Prompt Generator. And so this is a GPT that can help you in writing good prompts. And so let me briefly show you how that works. So I will now go to my GPT. And so it's called the Expert Prompt Generator. And so what did I do here? I actually wrote a very straightforward prompt. So here I wrote, I want to optimize my personal branding strategy. That's actually not a good prompt. That's very vague, no roles, no tasks, no output. However, when I then press enter, this expert prompt generator will not give outputs, but it will actually give me a much better prompt that I then can subsequently use. So you will see now, if we look at the output, this will indeed give me a chain of thought. So it will now give me a step-by-step steps that a prompt should execute. And you see it's in this case quite extensive, 7 steps, and it will create examples for the prompts, and it will formulate an expected output format, and it will create some rules and constraints. And then I can copy paste all of this information into a new prompt, and then I can execute that prompt to get the output. And I already now prepared that for you. So let me show you how the output might look like. So now I have to briefly go to my second prompt here. And so now, and here we are now in GPT-5. That's today the kind of standard model in ChatGPT. And before 2 weeks ago, that was GPT-4o. Now GPT-5 is kind of the standard model. And so here I've now copy-pasted the prompt that my prompt expert has created. Yeah? So you see it's quite a long prompt that it's created for me. This is all the prompt. And then here I get the output. And so here you will see, so it starts with a small summary of who I am. So it also looked on the internet to find information about me. And then it formulates what kind of brand identity I could build, what my target audience can be, what kind of messaging I should do. It even gives me suggestions about what kind of visual style could I apply when using social media, which kind of platforms I should use. And you see, I already get now quite an extensive amount of information that I can use as a starting point to build my personal branding strategy. So in that way, still in a relatively short amount of time, you can create quite a complex prompt, and then you can execute a prompt, and in that way, you can generate for yourself a personal branding strategy. Yeah, that's what you can do. I want to show you one more option that you have nowadays in ChatGPT. And maybe first, before I move forward, this is actually a recent development. So OpenAI, when they launched GPT-5, I think it's now 3 weeks ago, they also created in their developer platform, so not in the ChatGPT that everybody's using, but they actually have a separate platform, their OpenAI developer platform. And in that platform, they created what they call themselves a prompt optimizer. And the logic is here the same. You give it a straightforward prompt, and then this prompt optimizer will create for you a more sophisticated prompt, but now really based on the kind of the newest GPT-5 rules. And actually here you can see it in the background. So this is then what it creates for you. So if you're interested in that, of course, you need to go to the OpenAI developer platform. So that requires some additional steps. But here actually you can create the most sophisticated prompts by using what they call this prompt optimizer. So that could be an additional thing if you want, and if you want to take the step to go to their developer platform. And it's actually quite interesting to see what kind of prompts it generates nowadays. So this is an additional option you have. Finally, I think, and this is actually more simple in terms of prompting, but in my experience, it's very powerful. Another option we have today is to go to deep research. So if you're in ChatGPT, you have the option to click on deep research, and then actually ChatGPT will for you do a deeper research on that topic. And so here you see I formulated quite a straightforward prompt. So I'm asking, design a comprehensive branding strategy tailored to Dries Vlaams with the goal of establishing a clear, consistent, and memorable personal brand across digital and in-person platforms. So maybe I can show you how that exactly works for the people who have not yet tried that. So I'm briefly now will have to go to my prompt here. Let me do that. So I will copy paste my prompt now into ChatGPT so that I can show it to you. So I will open a new ChatGPT now. I copy that prompt, yeah. And now then, if you want to enable deep research, you have to press here on plus and then enable deep research, yeah. And so now you ask it to do this deep research, and then you have to press here on enter. And then typically, we will see if it now also does that, it will ask some follow-up questions. So before it now starts really executing the prompt, it first answers me some follow-up questions that I need to answer. Yeah? So I hear it asks me what are his current roles and key areas of expertise, who is the target audience. Yeah? So then now I can simply answer core roles, academic expert, something like that, target audience, professionals. What are his main platforms? LinkedIn and
Hallo?
YouTube.
Hallo?
Yes.
Wenn ich Freunde bei mir zu Besuch habe, mehr als zu 100% diese drei.
We are having somebody is so Niklas will help me to unmute. That's good. Yes. So does he have existing branding materials? No. And what is the final question here? What are the short and long-term goals? Becoming a huge influencer, something like that. Yeah. And then I can press enter. And then actually this deep research will start. Now this easily will take 5 to 10 minutes. So now it will really search on the internet like crazy, collect a lot of information, and based on that information, I will get a kind of a consulting report, and that will be again kind of my personal branding strategy. Now I did this before, so I can show you briefly the kind of result that you can expect. So now I will simply stop this, but I can show you actually the results. So let me briefly go here to my file so that you can see how it looks like. Yes, okay. So I will open now, and in the end, you can actually then download the output as a PDF. So you can simply create a PDF of it. So this is then the kind of PDF that you get. Yeah? So this is now my report called Personal Branding Strategy for Dries Farms. And you will see this is actually already quite an extensive document. So it gives me a messaging framework, again, about what kind of visual identity can I build, what kind of voice should I use for social media, and you see what kind of LinkedIn content strategy should I focus on. So this is all kinds of stuff that I can write, and you can see, I think in total, this is a report then of like 11, 12 pages. So it's quite an extensive document that we have here. Yeah. So this is how, with deep research, you can easily create quite an extensive branding brief. And again, the prompt here is very straightforward. Then you just have to have some patience before it's generated, but then you already have quite an extensive document that you can start using. So I think that's also a very valuable tool to use. Yeah, so I think this shows already a bit different options that you have to create your own personal branding strategy. And then you can start using that to create content. Now, before I show you some tools that you can use, let me first of all give a kind of more overall recommendation. Yeah. So if you want to use that, what I would suggest you to do is to be careful in thinking about when exactly do I want to use which kind of tools. Yeah. So I think today still generative AI is always prone to hallucination. Yeah? So you have to be careful in thinking about for what can I use it and for what can I not use it. Yeah. And so I think you always have to think about what are the risks that I face when a Gen AI is hallucinating. Yeah? Are these risks substantial or are they less substantial? Yeah? And to give a more concrete example, when I think about using Gen AI, I use it a lot for writing. Yeah? But sometimes I really use Gen AI to write for me text, that it almost is replacing me. That's what I call here full AI writing. Sometimes I use it more as an assistant. Yeah, so then I'm kind of co-creating. And sometimes I would only use it to give me some suggestions. Yeah? And so full AI writing, I would only do when kind of the reputational damage of hallucination is very low. For instance, and later on I will show you that I use AI for my YouTube videos. And if you create a YouTube videos, you also have to create a description. So if you click on the YouTube video, people can see a description. And for instance, the description, and I will explain later on how I do that. These descriptions, in my case, are fully created by generative AI. And to be honest, I almost even don't check it. Because even if there would be hallucination in descriptions, the reputational damage is quite limited. Yeah? So here, actually, I would almost outsource this to Gen AI. When I, for instance, need to write texts, then, for instance, for my academic research, then I often co-create because here I want to already be much more kind of in control. And for instance, when I write LinkedIn posts, I only use it for inspiration. because for me, LinkedIn is my core platform for social communication. And there I don't want to have hallucination issues or that people start thinking that I'm using Gen AI to write my LinkedIn post, because there for me, the reputational damage would be the highest. Yeah. So I really always assess for a certain activity, what is the reputational damage that I face by using AI? And based on that, I will determine how I use it. And sometimes I use it to replace me. Sometimes I use it as an assistant to co-create. And sometimes I will only use it to get some inspiration, but then I will do most of it myself. And so I think depending on which task you need to do, I think you need to make that distinction to make sure that you can leverage Gen AI, but at the same time, keep the risk that you might face reputational consequences to the minimum. Yeah, so that's kind of my framework that I try to apply when using generative AI. And we can later on have a discussion if you would agree with that or not. Okay, so then let me now focus a bit on kind of the tools that I use when I try to create content for social media. And I will now focus on one specific example. Again, I already showed this. So I create nowadays these YouTube videos on my channel. So I have a YouTube channel called the Gen AI Nerd channel, for which I create YouTube videos. And so this is one of the more recent videos. This was a video about this prompt optimizer that OpenAI launched. And so let me show you a bit how in all the steps of creating, publishing, communicating about this video, I tend to use Gen AI tools. Yeah? So every time when I create a video for YouTube, I have to do like 5 steps. First of all, I have to think about, okay, how will I do this YouTube video? So I need to get some inspiration. Then, of course, I have to record the video and also produce it. Then I need to find a title and a description for my YouTube video. I need to think about a thumbnail for my video. And finally, I also want to communicate about it via LinkedIn, for instance, so that people are aware of this new video. So these are the steps I need to do. And for 3 out of these 5 steps, I intensively use generative AI. And so let me show you how to do that. So the first step is getting inspiration. And here actually, what I now use a lot is the voice mode of ChatGPT. And so, you know, ChatGPT today, you can not only type prompts, but you can also really talk with it. And that's what we call the advanced voice mode. And that advanced voice mode has become very good. So typically when I want to get some first inspiration about a video, I will simply talk with ChatGPT for like 10 minutes, like, oh, I want to do a video on this topic. How would you do that? What kind of elements should I emphasize? Can you give me some suggestions on how I can start that video? So I will simply talk with it for 5-10 minutes. And based on that, I will get already a lot of input for a kind of structure for my YouTube video. Now, I don't fully transcribe videos, so I try to keep it a bit natural, but then still I create a structure that I can then use for recording my videos. Then, of course, I need to record the video. And here, to be honest, I don't use Gen AI tools. So I use Adobe Premiere because I have not yet found an AI tool that can reach the quality that I expect. So here, unfortunately, I still need to do it myself, which is actually quite cumbersome. You really need to learn how to do the good editing and stuff like that. But slowly, I'm getting grip on it. But so here, to be honest, I don't use Gen AI tools. I see sometimes on YouTube people that claim that there are now tools out there, but I've tried some of them, and for me, they didn't reach the necessary quality levels. And then when that video is ready, then I need to create a title and a description. And here again, I heavily use generative AI. More specifically, I have actually created for myself a GPT that can help me. And let me briefly show you the GPT that I have designed to help me so that I can explain a bit what is actually going on there. So now I have to briefly go to my GPT. So let me do that. So I will go to my ChatGPT again so that I can show it. So I will now go to ChatGPT and we can do it step by step. So then if you go to your ChatGPT, you will find on the left-hand side here GPTs. Yeah? And now I go to my own GPTs, so my GPTs. And actually, I think it's already here on the left-hand side. Let me do that quicker. Yeah, so I have here the GPT YouTube description generator. And now let me first briefly show you the backend of this GPT. So how did I create this GPT? So I can now click here on Edit GPT so that you can see a bit the backend, how it's created. So here we are in configure mode. So here you can see a bit how I created this GPT. So the name of it is YouTube description generator. So the purpose is to create customized descriptions. And here I have given it the instructions. So here I give the instructions about what this GPT needs to do. And so here I'm saying, look, the user will upload as attachment a transcript of a YouTube video, use the transcript to suggest a title for the YouTube videos. The title and description are meant to be part of the GenAI Nerd channel. And actually here you will see again, I explain which steps it needs to execute to do so. So I say, for the title formulation, you need to do the following steps. Identify the core topics of the transcript. So the user needs to give a transcript of the video, and then it can do all these steps. As identify core topics, search on YouTube for similar videos, analyze these videos, and then provide specific suggestions for a kind of high impact title based on existing videos. And the same it needs to do for the description. Search for other YouTube videos and then create a description by analyzing kind of the successful elements. So this is quite an extensive instruction set. And then I even give it a kind of template of the kind of output that I want to have. So again, you see here, I give it already quite some information. But on top of that, I have uploaded here in the GPT my personal branding brief. And that means this is a document, again, that I created with deep research. That is kind of a personalized document of how I want to do my branding on YouTube. So I asked deep research, create for me a branding brief with details on how I want to kind of show myself on YouTube. And again, that's then that kind of 10-page document with all kinds of suggestions and best practices. And that I uploaded in this GPT as background knowledge. So every time when I give this GPT a certain instruction, it will take all that knowledge into account. And so in that way, here you can really start kind of creating a digital twin of yourself with very straightforward instructions, but also very specific background knowledge. And I think, in my experience, that makes these GPTs much more powerful. So the more input you give them, the more specific you are in terms of your instructions, but also in giving them background knowledge, the more they can really provide high quality input. And now the only thing that I need to do here, and now we can go back to the actual GPT so that I can show you how it works. So this is now my GPT. And now the only thing that I need to do is to upload a transcript. So now I can upload the transcript of this video that you can create in Adobe. So Adobe allows you to create transcripts. So now I briefly need to upload this document. So let me go to the right place. So here I simply have a text document with the transcript. And now I'm uploading the transcript. And now I even don't have to give any prompt because it knows what it needs to do. Now I can simply press enter. And now it will start generating output. So now if everything goes well, it will actually, for me, provide a title and a description. So now you can see, let me see. Yeah, actually it has an issue. It doesn't read the document. That's something that I recently noticed. And what is the problem here? In one way or another, in GPTs, the 4o model has become quite stupid. I don't know why, but that's the reality. So what you actually need to do, now I forgot to do it, is to enable the GPT-5 Thinking model. So that's what we called the reasoning model. Before that were the O1 and O3 models. They are now called the GPT-5 Thinking. So let me try to do it again now with the thinking. So I will add the same file now. And normally now it should work. Let me try to do it. So I just upload now again, but now we actually use the more advanced GPT models. And my experience is that it will take a bit longer because now it needs to do this reasoning. That means it will actually formulate steps and execute them. but typically then it's fully able to read the document. And I think it already did it. Now you can see it's actually in line with my instructions. It's trying to create a title. It's including file citations. And now we have to briefly wait, planning video research, clarifying OpenAI features, whatever that means. Now it's browsing. And so you can follow a bit what it's doing, although nowadays it's sometimes quite cryptic. So to really understand what it's doing is not always that straightforward. But you see, this takes a bit longer. That's the huge disadvantage. But then the quality tends to be even higher. And especially within GPTs, my experience is actually that the 4o model, especially when you start using files and stuff like that, is actually getting quite stupid. Yeah? So then it even, although I uploaded the file, it's not able to read it in one way or another, which is often a bit annoying. Yeah? Okay, this now really takes some time, but I hope it will be almost ready. Otherwise, we can move forward and come back briefly to check the results. So let me briefly see here if I can see where it is. Yeah, so here we can actually click, then you actually can see all the steps that it's executing. And again, because I asked it quite a lot of instructions, this takes a bit of time. So in that way, it's quite normal that we now have to wait a bit. Yeah. Okay, I think it's still running now. Yeah. Okay, so let us move forward and I will come back. Then we can see what the actual output is. But what I hope you understand, and I think this is very important, today with GPTs, you can really start tailoring very specific environments where you give very personal instructions and personal background knowledge that you can create with deep research. And in that way, you can really create very customized environments that can do for you very personal tasks. And I think that's really the power of these models. Yeah, and I think in the meantime, it's now ready. And so here is the title that it would suggest. Yeah? So this is the title that it suggests me to use. It then also explains me a bit why this is a good title. Yeah? So then I can double check that. And here is the YouTube description that it has generated for me. Yeah? So this would be the description. And again, this would be, for instance, something that I would simply copy paste and I would not think a lot about it. I know that this is high quality. Maybe there might be once in a while a typo or a sentence that is not great, but in terms of efficiency, I typically here really outsource this to ChatGPT and copy paste it into my YouTube description. Yeah? So that's what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, so that's step 4. And so this is again an example of this deep research report that I then add as an attachment to the GPT. So then the next step that I need to do is to create thumbnails. And here, to be honest, I again do not really leverage GenAI because again, I've tried quite some tools that claim to be good in creating thumbnails, but unfortunately for me, they do not really work out. So here I still do it in a rather classical way by going to Photoshop and then create a thumbnail, which is again, still quite time consuming. But again, for me, generative AI has not been really helpful. Nevertheless, as a side note, I think the image generators have become much better. So the one of ChatGPT has exponentially improved in the past months. Actually, today, Gemini also has released their newest image generator. So it's called Flash 2.5 image. And I tried it out myself and I was actually quite impressed. It's still not yet perfect. And actually for thumbnails, it doesn't work. So if you ask it to create a thumbnail, it doesn't work. But to fine-tune images, it actually works very well. But also ChatGPT here is actually very good. I can just briefly give you an example here, how I use it. And so I actually use this for storytelling in entrepreneurial settings. So let me show you. So again, here I created again a GPT for myself. And maybe let me briefly show you again the background. So I can go now to edit GPT. Yeah, so again, a prompt, and here I give again very extensive instructions. And so here the instructions are, you need to help me to create images that can help me with storytelling. Yeah. And also here I added in the backend a document, and this is a document that I again created with deep research about best practices for prompting images. Yeah? So this is the kind of background knowledge I gave it so that it can really be an expert in creating images. And then this is a GPT that can help me with visual storytelling. And let me show you now the example. So let me go back. And so here, what did I do? And so I simply typed start, and then it asks me, okay, tell me what kind of storytelling you want to do and give me an image. So then I gave it an image of myself, and I told it, can you create an image of the attached person facing a pain point, facing a problem? Then actually it asked some follow-up questions. Yeah? So what is the context of the pain point? What is the intended use? What kind of setting do you envision? What is the tone or mood desired? And then I have to answer these questions. And then it said, okay, now I'm ready. Here is a prompt to create an image. So then for me, based on the information I provided, it created a sophisticated prompt to build an image. And then I can also ask to create that image. Yeah? And so this was then the image that it generated for me. Yeah? So here I think you see already, this is then a nice image where it started from my picture, but now really kind of created in somebody that is clearly facing a pain point. Yeah? And then this is actually a picture that I can use in slides for my storytelling. So this is how I tend to use this approach. But again, I'm able to get high quality output because I have given very in-depth instructions. And on top of that, a lot of knowledge background on how to create good visuals. And in that way, you can really improve the quality of the output that you can generate with this kind of tools. So that's, I think, the important part here. Yes? And then finally, just as a final step, I also use it to communicate. And then typically what I will do if I publish a YouTube video, I will also create an article on LinkedIn. So not a post. Again, for writing posts, I do not use Gen AI because that I want to really control myself. But I also create articles on LinkedIn. You can create articles. And again, I then have a special GPT that can create for me LinkedIn articles, and it's the same logic. I've given it a lot of instructions. I've given it a deep research report on how to write articles. And then the only thing I need to do is to upload a transcript, and then it will immediately for me create a high quality article based on the transcript. Here I will double check to make sure, but I will screen it. And to be honest, most of the time I might have to adjust 2-3 sentences and then it is ready to be published. So also here you can be extremely efficient. I do double check here, but only to a limited extent. Yeah, so this is just an example how I'm using ChatGPT to really help me in being as efficient as possible in creating content for my digital branding. And this was now an example of YouTube, but so you can think in a similar way about LinkedIn or how to write blog posts or how to write Substack newsletters. I think for all these things where you can promote yourself digitally, you can use a similar approach. Just as a final kind of comment, there are ways to really go the next level in automation. Yeah? So until now, I still showed you how you can use in ChatGPT, and you see I still need to do some steps. Actually, there are tools nowadays that can help you to automate even further. And one of these tools is N8N. And N8N is, I would say, a low-code application. So you don't really need to know coding, but sometimes you still need to know a little bit about it. But so in N8N, you can really create workflows. And you have to see it as almost like you can have all kinds of Lego pieces, like an Excel sheet, your emails, your calendar. And in N8N, you can actually connect them all, and agents can then, for you, automatically execute a lot of steps. And so here, for instance, I could create an N8N workflow where I give a transcript, and then based on that transcript, it would create a title, a YouTube description, a LinkedIn article, and it could even email that to me or send it to a Slack channel or even to WhatsApp. All these things can be integrated. Yeah? So if you go to YouTube and you type in N8N workflows, you will see the most crazy workflows being automated today with N8N. I've here uploaded a quite straightforward workflow, but if you would like to try it out yourself, this would be an easy example to start. So this would be an example where you have an Excel with like company names, And then this workflow will help you to go to the internet and search for information about these companies and add it to the Excel sheet. So then all these steps would be automatically executed. Actually, Google recently also launched a similar tool called Opal. And here it's actually really a no-code tool. So N8N, sometimes you still need to know a bit about coding. With Opal, you can simply prompt, this is the workflow I want to generate, and then it will actually fully create a workflow for you. So in terms of automation, this is even next level. Until recently, Opal was only available in the US, so you needed to have a VPN connection with the US to use it. But I'm sure it will quickly become also available in Europe. And this is also something interesting to test out. So if you want to go even further in automation, I think N8N and Opal are really relevant alternatives. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share. Now, before we go to the questions, let me briefly do some additional kind of PR. So as mentioned before, I have this GenAI Nerd channel. So if you want to kind of keep up with new tools, that's what I try to do there, especially in the field of entrepreneurship and academic research. So you can always subscribe to that channel and see what kind of videos I post. This is more as a side note, I launched a second channel this week, and this is actually for the next 8 weeks. So next week, I start at WAU my new entrepreneurship course with the bachelor students. But as a kind of challenge, I also will try to build my own startup in the next 8 weeks, heavily using GenAI tools. And so in this channel called Founding Out Loud, I will try to share my experiences about am I able to build a successful startup in 8 weeks? What is working? What is not working? So if you're interested in the topic of entrepreneurship and you want to see how I struggle building my own startup, because I anticipate quite some challenges, you can always follow me if you want. And then finally, as I mentioned at the start, actually at WAU, we offer today quite a lot of executive education on generative AI. So if you want to take really a deep dive into this topic, we actually have quite some offerings. So we have an online bootcamp. This is a bootcamp where we will do 3 sessions of 2 hours. And there I go even much deeper in a lot of topics. Yeah? So then I go deeper into advanced prompting. I also talk about all the tools nowadays about text to voice, text to video, HeyGen, 11 Labs. And I talk a lot about agentic AI. Yeah? So if you would want to take a deep dive in these topics, then I would recommend this online bootcamp. I also do an executive education program on innovation entrepreneurship. That's a broader program. It's a 3-day program in Düsseldorf, and it will be organized in November. But also there, I pay a lot of attention to how you can use generative AI today on these topics. And next to that, we also have quite some nice guest speakers in that program. So if you want to need a kind of update on innovation and entrepreneurship, that is a program I can recommend. And finally, in December, I will do together with my colleague, Professor Christoph Hinert, a 2-day program on transformative storytelling with AI. So that's a program that is fully dedicated towards storytelling. How can you become a good storyteller? And my colleague, Christoph Hinert, he will give the basics of storytelling. And then on day 2, I will show you how you can use GenAI to help you with your storytelling. So that's another on-site program in Düsseldorf that we offer.